Okay, welcome everyone to the Open Master Day of the Master Economic and Consumer Psychology. My name is Elise Sijp, I'm the coordinator of the Master, and next to me is Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie. Nice to meet you all. I hope you enjoy our following presentation.
And Julie is currently still a student at the Economic and Consumer Psychology Master, so she will also a little bit later tell about her experience of the Master. I'll start off with explaining a bit about the Master program, and then there's room for questions from you. So when you will join the Economic and Consumer Psychology Master, you'll join the department with a large group of scientists who all have an expertise in their field. And these people will teach you, give lectures to you, teach work groups, and also will be your supervisor for the thesis. So when you'll do a thesis, you know that you'll always be supervised by an expert in the field. There is an information video about the Master. I think you've all been encouraged to watch it. It's very informative and everything is pretty much explained. So what I'll tell today is a bit of a repetition of the content there. So economic and consumer psychology studies the psychological mechanisms that underlie consumption and other economic behavior. So it's about preferences, choices, and decisions. And we make countless decisions all day. What products shall we buy, what services to use. And companies and organizations are trying to influence choices and decisions with communication, marketing, and advertising. And what you'll learn during the Master is how companies can use the knowledge to influence people's behavior. And companies could be like large companies selling products, but also governmental agencies promoting certain healthy behavior. So you'll learn how you can tempt a person to buy the product, how to make use, save energy, and persuade money to donate money to a charity, for example. And this Master program, it's now a couple of years that it's running now, and it originated really from also in economy. Economists always thought that people were rational decision makers, but at a certain point there are also two people, Daniel Kahneman and Richard Taylor, who contested that and showed that people are not that rational at all, but they rely on heuristics, for example. And this program is really building on their work. So what will you do as when you be finishing this Master? You will be trained as a science-based practitioner for the private and the public sector. Private or public. It depends on your preference, and you can also find this out, for example, in your internship. You learn how and why people make certain choices and decisions. And you learn how to apply this knowledge in both for-profit and non-profit contexts. So the knowledge and skills you develop. Knowledge you develop about emotions and consumer behavior. So which emotions are used, for example, by companies to persuade consumers to buy products. Happiness or fear, for example. If you look at commercials, you'll see that often emotions are used. And in the work group, we'll go deeper, we'll read literature about the influence of these emotions on perception and decision and behavior. So you really get to know the mechanisms behind it. Other knowledge is about persuasion and influencing choices, selling and advertising and marketing, and economic decision making. And then you also learn to do statistics, so you have applied data analysis courses and an elective. And the skills you'll learn is you'll learn how to do strategy analysis, media and communication strategy, marketing concept, and again data analysis. So it is all the theoretical knowledge that is presented to you in the Master always also has a practical annotation to it. So you'll learn the theory, and then oftentimes in work groups you will also learn how to apply it for societal problems, for example. And in all the courses you learn how to critically write and present. This is a short program overview. You can also find it on the website. You can see here which courses are offered in the first semester and also encouraged to take, and in the second semester. In the first semester you make a start also with your master's thesis project, and you finish this in the second semester. Also the teachings are in small seminars, about 15 people per seminar per work group. And the assignments in the work groups are targeted at multiple skills and clear connection to practice, as I said earlier. So some examples of master thesis projects that have been offered last years are sustainable behavior, dealing with temptations, surprise and consumption, complex technological innovation, very much taken from societal problems currently, but also online dating, choice overload, how to use Tinder in a right way, corruption and unethical behavior, and financial stress and consumer choices. And after you finish your master thesis, you can do an internship. And these are some examples of companies where students from the master have done their internship. And as you can see, it varies much between large for-profit organizations like Coca-Cola and Heineken, and more non-profit organizations like Nibud and Wijzer en Geldzaken. And Vlaanderen is a creditor organization. For example, I'm working together with them, so we do research for them. We look at why it's so difficult to get in contact with people who have financial problems. You can either do an internship there to work at the department and see how you can influence people to get contact, but also there is also a research master offered as an economic consumer psychologist. So I'm a scientist and I did a research master, and I work together with this creditor organization. But what I do is look at how they're currently communicating with their clients and how that can be improved. And then we test this also in the organization. So if you do the research master, you can select certain courses of the economic and consumer psychology master, and you learn in addition to research skills. So how to design a research project, how to analyze it, and how to run experiments. And again, you can also apply this research in companies, so at practical societal issues. And where do students end up after their master? This was an alumni survey. The top 5 fields were consumer insights, advertising, consulting, communication, and consumer products. For example, at the career day this year, we had a student who is working at Philips right now, and is very much involved in the development of a certain product, and then also communicating with different departments. So you're not a marketing person, but you can communicate very well with someone from marketing. So those are fields where you can end up. And what you'll do is a large part of students also are asked to analyze the data. So a lot of companies are doing research to get the consumer insights, and then you as a ECP student know how to analyze data. So that's a task that's asked often. You can do consulting, advising, develop marketing strategies, and do survey research and analyze it then. So I would now like to give the word to Julie.
Yes, I'm going to quickly reintroduce myself. I'm Julie, and I'm currently doing the Economic and Consumer Psychology Master. So first, a little bit about myself, a little bit of my background, so you know kind of where I'm coming from. I'm half Venezuelan, half Aruban, so very international background. And accordingly, I did the International Bachelor in Psychology here at Leiden University, so I have some history with the university already. Also, the reason why I decided to choose this master is it was the perfect fit for me. I was always interested in the psychological mechanisms at work, especially in daily life, like our everyday things that we can do, how to convince people to do what you want. I'm sure some of you would like to know that. Both in the perspective of for profit, so like companies, and also nonprofit, so donations and things like that, or the government. You could try to decide how to develop a strategy for the society that you live in, maybe. Also, the most optimal way on how to like sell your product or service was also really interesting to me, and as long as it's backed by research, so we have papers that would give us the reasoning of why we decided to do this. I always thought was a very good way to approach how to solve a problem. The next slide, please.
Yeah. Yes.
And a little bit of my current experience as a student. I think it's very enjoyable. A lot of the topics that we have discussed in the different courses that I'm taking are very interesting to me. Like every time I'm reading, I find myself trying to find more information on that topic or different perspectives, which kind of brings me to my next point. It's very enlightening. You can really broaden your horizons on the material. I know some of you are probably interested in consumers, for example, but there's different ways in how you can try to change a person's mind. You can take the emotional route, right? You can take maybe like heuristics, also mentioned already. There's different ways that you can approach the problem. You can also have different factors that you maybe have not thought of or expected, different information, papers that give you things that you just did not think that was going to work that way. Maybe you thought that A equals B, but maybe it's more like A moderated by C equals B, something like that. Another thing that I really enjoy of the study is that you can be very independent, and you kind of need to be independent as well. You can kind of choose what to focus on when you write on certain topics. Like we will have to write papers on for our courses, and you get a lot of freedom of like what kind of angle you want to approach that from. So different perspectives are very valuable, and everybody has their own point of view. So I recommend you, if you're interested, to join our program. And my current goal, or kind of like the goal that I had when I started this study, was that I would have liked to work for an international organization, maybe in the marketing department or the product distribution department, something like that. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you. So now we would like to ask you to pose all the questions you have, and either I will answer them or Julie, if they're much more related about current student life. And during this session, a moderator will select the questions that will be answered during the session. If your question is not answered, please send an email to the address being shown. So we start off with the questions. And what I'll do is that I see the questions on the board. I'll read the question and then I'll try to answer it. So the first question that I see is, will we be learning to analyze our data using coding? Yes? This very specific question.
I don't think so. I believe we do have ADA, applied data analysis, and we kind of learned all of the necessary statistics. You kind of get like a what do you call that? A refresher. You get a refresher on like a lot of the statistics that you probably got in your bachelor's, because this will be necessary for your master thesis. You will need to analyze your own data. But I don't believe we're going to be coding.
I also am a bit confused by the question. So I don't know exactly what the question would, the person wants to know. So maybe if this person could follow up on the question, then I can later answer it more in detail. So the next question, do you start with the same courses as semester 1 when you start in February? Yes. So most courses are offered twice, so in September and in February. So you start with the same courses, yes. The next question is, since the internship is a requirement during the master, how difficult is it to find one as a non-Dutch speaking person? So, did you already look for an internship?
Yeah, I've started looking, and it doesn't seem to be that hard. I haven't started with like the interviewing process or anything like that yet, so I don't know how high my acceptance rate is. I believe they recommend us to start looking for internships like in March was our my supervisor for that area. He was like, oh, maybe wait a little bit because you're gonna be very busy before that period. So right now I don't have a exact answer, but from what I've heard from alumni that I've contacted, it's not that hard, and if anything, if you play your cards right, you may even have multiple options. But yeah, I think in our area as well, like
obviously it's going to be more difficult than a Dutch speaking person because there are more companies that require Dutch as a language. But especially in this field, I think there are quite some companies that are international in the Netherlands and that will accept international students. Yeah. The next question, what makes Leiden different from other universities with regard to this specialization? Well, the special thing about Leiden University, I think, is that it's very much focused on small groups teachings. So, as I said, in the master, the work groups are not larger than 15 students. So that makes it, you have very much contact with the teacher. Also, teachers at the department, the assistant professors are very easily approached. I think mainly, that we really look out for our students is something that is special at Leiden. So the next question is, will you follow all the same theoretical subjects in a research master as in the regular master? So you can select, if you do a research master, yes, then you select the courses from the Economic and Consumer Psychology master, the theoretical. And in addition, so the research master is 2 years. It's a year extra. And in addition, you get science-focused courses. Yeah. What's your favorite course in the program? I think that's a question for you.
Yeah. My favorite one? Well, I still have one more left, one of the mandatory courses left. But if I had to choose right now, it's probably Emotions and Irrationality. It was really fun. We had to read different papers on a certain topic, like a certain consumer. And then you really got the different perspectives that I was talking about. Like there were different things that I just maybe did not think about. And then you had to write like an essay on it. So you also got to put your own input. And I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, I think that was my favorite one. It's
also my favorite one.
Yeah.
Because I'm teaching it. So.
Yeah. She was my teacher.
So we agree.
Yeah. Not biased at all.
Yeah. So this question is also for you.
Oh.
Next one.
Which one? Something that I wish that I knew before the program. I think that when you look at the program, it's like in 1 year. You know that's the planned scheduling, but you can definitely, if you need to, like take a bit longer. So it doesn't have to be like everything like very at that moment. You know, you can take a little bit longer, take your time, see what you kind of want to do. If you have other responsibilities as well. I think that's one thing that I think I like that they would have told me, like it's okay if you need like a little bit more time. It is not like expected, and if you don't do it, maybe you may feel like you failed, but no, it's totally fine. I think
because it was stressful for you.
Yeah, when I first saw the course load, I was like, oh, sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
And I still have like other things I would like to do, but. Yeah, I think if you take like, you don't have to do like a whole other year. You can also do like maybe 1 month or 2 months or like 6 months. I heard as well that once you go past 1 year, you pay like per month your tuition, something like that. So you don't have to like panic. Maybe if your financial situation is not that great, that oh my God, I'll have to pay another whole year of tuition once you go like past that 1 year. It kind of goes like per month, so you can like maybe plan a little bit better how you would like to spend that year, or maybe a bit more than that year.
Next question. For data analysis, will we be working with SPSS or will we be learning to analyze using programming language? So this is currently a debate, actually, at our department. So we are discussing to switch from SPSS to R, the program R. So currently the teaching is still focused on SPSS, but it's changing, and more assistant professors working at our department are starting to use R. So I guess that so I don't know whether it's going to be implemented this year already, but that will switch to R. So how many contact hours are there per week, and what's the schedule of a regular week?
Yeah, I think most of the blocks kind of per course, like a work group, for example, is 2 hours. It depends on how you plan your schedule, but if you do it according to the planned scheduling, you can have anywhere from 2 work groups per week and 1 to 2 lectures per week. So I think maybe like 6 hours per week of like actually going to the faculty, doing a class. But that kind of changes depending on how you plan out your schedule, because if you're only doing like a mandatory course and like maybe like 1 lecture, then it's obviously going to be less. But I think it was, for me, I had like 2 lectures sometimes, like 6 hours ish per week, yeah, and on different days.
Yeah, and it's also kind of dangerous, of course, to think that there are only 6 contact hours, because the workload is 40 hours a week. So it means that you need to work a lot independently, not in work groups, but each work group has also assignments related to it, either group assignments or individual assignments that you need to prepare, and a large amount of literature that you're required to read before seminars. So you will have to take into account that you'll be working around 40 hours a week for your studies. So the next question is it possible to do the internship or elective courses abroad? Yes, that's possible. So we have a international student advisor, and you can definitely do your internship abroad. Courses is a bit more complex, I think, but I would also advise to go to the international study advisor to see whether the electives that you have within your master program, that you can take those abroad. Is a bachelor's degree from a University of Applied Sciences sufficient to be admitted for this master program at Leiden? For this question, I would like to refer you to the admission people. So there's an email address that you can find that's all about questions about admission, and also on the website you can find it. There are recordings from this week about admission that you can rewatch. Yeah.
Oh, did I consider other masters? And if so, why did you choose this one? I did actually, in fact, consider another one. It's kind of, I suppose, the sister to our course. It's the social and organizational psychology. But I decided to ultimately go with this one. It just seemed to fit my goals better. I suppose like you gave a pretty good summary for social and organizational, if you don't mind repeating it.
Yeah, so why how social and organizational is different?
Yeah,
so that's in social and organizational psychology, master is much more focused on group processes. So how do groups compete with each other, and how do they cooperate, and why, and which mechanisms are important in that. And also it's more focused on organizations and organizational structures. So leadership styles, and how can you develop employees to become good, better employees, and develop their talents, for example. So for HR, then that master would be more relevant.
Yeah, I think that's also kind of what I ended up getting from the two courses was social and organizational was more kind of like that HR department, but I was more interested in the marketing side of things. So that's kind of what I decided to ultimately choose this one.
Are most people able to finish the master within 1 year? Yes, it is definitely possible. So the requirements for an internship are you should at least do an internship of 280 hours, which is approximately 3 months. And when you plan well, then you finish your master thesis. So I have to rethink, because you're probably everyone who's here now will start in February. So then you start in February, and you before summer you make a start with your master thesis. So after the first you have the mandatory courses, electives, and then you start with your thesis. And after summer you finish your thesis, and around October you'll be finished. If you adhere to that planning, then you have time to do your internship in November, December, or December, January. So then it's definitely possible to do it within 1 year.
Are you able to balance your studies and free time well? Most of the times, yes. There are things that pop up every now and then, but that's more like your personal life. You know, things can happen sometimes. But yes, you can. It's definitely possible, but you need to be able to schedule your planning well, like weeks in advance, kind of, I suppose. So as long as your planning is good, I think it's definitely doable. I know some people also have part-time jobs, and they're able to manage. So if they can do it, I'm pretty sure you can also do it if it's like your studies and your free time, as long as you plan well and you have a realistic expectation of the workload for a week, then it's definitely possible.
Yeah, and I would very much encourage to have free time as well, to do sports or hang out with friends. Otherwise, the master is going to be too tough. You really need to have this balance between the high workload and cooling down also. There's also another question that we skipped, but I'm going to read that first. So is it a necessity to have a psychology background? So for like... I can't say anything about like, is it like admission? You need a psychology degree to be admitted to the master program. Again, I'll refer to people who have expert knowledge about that. But I do think it's very more important to know about psychology, because it's not economy. It's not an economy master. It is within the context of economic choices and decisions and behavior. But the focus is very much on the perception of the consumer, the person, the individual person, but I mean also the influence of a group, of course, but very much on which heuristics do people use when they make decisions, and this anchoring effects, like how can you nudge people to a certain choice. You all know this Booking.com, and then it's saying there's one room left, and that's an induction of scarcity, right? So you really get to know all these induction techniques used by companies. So then if you book on Booking.com, you know, like, oh, they're influencing me, and you can regulate it. So you'll hopefully become a better consumer. Or I also hear people saying, even if I know it, I'm still... I'm still influenced by it, and I book the room because I think then it's really gone. But no, the master is it's very important to have a psychological background already.
Yeah, I think I also agree. Like a lot of the things that we're going to be discussing also in like the work groups, you kind of need to be able to fall back on your theoretical background. I think that's why, I did a bachelor in psychology, so I kind of already have that knowledge of the theories. I think it's very important that you have kind of like this base knowledge, because from here on, it's kind of like a stepping stone. We're going to go like a step further and discuss like different ways on how to apply the theories, or maybe you think of another theory that you could possibly apply in this, like whatever topic you're discussing at the time. So I think it's important to have, important to have like a background in psychology.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I think especially at the master level, we challenge you to express yourself as a critical thinker. So we really try to bring about your unique point of view on the material. And that requires that you have this basic knowledge and background of psychological processes, and that you're able to, on a more deeper level, reflect on the theory and the application of the theories. So you need your background knowledge, and then we help you to make a step further. Will all courses of this program take place on campus in Leiden, or is it possible that some of them are in The Hague? No, all courses are at the Leiden University in Leiden. Yeah.
Which aspects of the program are you critical about? What do you not like? All the tough questions. I think one of the things that kind of came to mind, and I suppose it's kind of like a double-edged sword, is that I mentioned before that you can kind of choose what you want to do with whatever course you're going to be discussing like that week or for that semester. And sometimes it can be a bit hard to choose like what do I want to do. Like it's very broad. Like you kind of are left to your own devices in like certain ways. Like what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? Like we had to write the paper, and I had to, let's say, put the input of like I had all this theoretical knowledge. What do I want to apply it on what topic? And it was kind of hard to do that, to choose like, oh, I want to explore it in this way. So it's very like you kind of are left to your own devices sometimes, and maybe a little bit, if you need any help, I'm pretty sure you can always like email your coordinators. But at first it's a little bit intimidating of like, oh, what do I need to do? Like I think that's like one thing that I would maybe like a little bit more help on in the future, or like for the future students.
Yeah, I think that relates to what I just told, right? It's challenging, but we really want to see you or educate you as independent critical thinkers, and so it's in that sense we are less just teaching you and you need to take in, but we're really trying to bring about your uniqueness that you bring to the program, and that can be challenging.
Yeah,
I can understand.
Yeah, I had like a bunch of topics that I wanted to talk about, but you really need to focus on one thing, and sometimes it can be like the choice overload. I think you mentioned it, so you can do a lot of things, but you need to really be able to focus on one thing, and that can be definitely challenging.
I'm still thinking between corporate culture, career, and marketing. Between corporate culture, career, and marketing. Okay. Would recommend choosing economic and consumer psychology or social and organizational psychology. Thank you. So corporate culture, career, also pretty broad. I mean, for marketing, I would definitely say that I would advise to choose the economic and consumer psychology master. And corporate culture, career, it depends really what you want to do there, right? So if you want to focus on HR or on leadership development, or how do groups perform in organizations, then I would advise to do the social and organizational psychology master. Yeah, so I hope that answered the question.
What do you think is the biggest difference between a bachelor's and a master's? I think in the bachelor you really are kind of like, you get lectures and you get work groups, so you really discuss like certain theories. It's kind of more like theoretical, and gaining that knowledge, gaining those like basic topics, basic theories that you need to know. And the master's is really like applying these theories, like working more in like real life examples, real life situations. And it's much more like you get to put the input, you get to decide how do I want to describe this, from what perspective. It's really like you also get to add on to the knowledge from your perspective. Compared to the bachelor, I think it's more like a general knowledge that you need to kind of acquire. But in the bachelor, you really get to like apply that knowledge in a more concise way, like a more effective way, well, according to what you believe could be a solution. Like it's always like, what do you think? How do you think we can apply these things? In what ways? So I think that's kind of like the main difference. It's much more you get to decide how to do, or like how to describe the topics, really. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so applying the knowledge, I think also, for example, in work groups, we ask, the way it's set up is that we start with a sort of summary of oftentimes the work groups are organized by students themselves. So there's not the teacher telling the whole work group what about theory, but the students organize the work group themselves, and they're asked to make a setup of the work group. It starts with a theoretical overview, quickly, because everyone prepared the theory, and then there are certain elements in which you apply the theory. So, for example, one is that students are asked to design a campaign for improving certain health behavior. And then you need to use the theory that you were required to read for that week. And you can start drawing, for example, a commercial that you would like to create, implementing the mechanisms that we learned about that week. And then seeing how could we encourage this certain behavior, how can we influence decisions people make. So there are no more questions coming up. So maybe this is it. We have answered all of your questions. Maybe if you know if something's coming up, this is the last moment for you to post a question. And again, if there was a question that was not answered during this session, you can either go, if it was an admission-related question, look on the website where to find the email address for that, or find the recorded videos of this week. Or if you're unsure where to go with the admissions questions, you can also email them to the ambassador. So for other questions not related to admission, but that you feel you still have, you can email it to the ambassador email address. So with that, I would like to thank you for being here today, and I would like to thank you, Julie, also for sharing your experiences with hopefully future students, and hopefully I'll see you in February.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.